Oh, dope. What a thank you for watching the Derp with Kurp, and what a wonderful Derp we have today for you. I got a very special guest who wrote a book on a real controversial topic, adrenochrome. And so he's going to tell us about that. And also, we'll see if Big Homie CC shows up or if I've been white boyed. So that'll be like, I guess, by the end of the episode. We're going to get a lot of shit settled today. All right. Welcome, Paranoid American. Oh, nice. Yeah, the pipe is what. This is how real men discuss these things.
Glasses, a pipe, and a beard are the three things required for any serious conversation about adrenochrome.
This is how the Playboy Hugh Hefner would do it. And you go, John, what do you have in stock? Apothecary, and they'd whip out all kinds of hormonal blood things. Did you really write a book about adrenochrome?
It's unpublished right now. I've been working on it for about 4 years, and as far as I'm aware, it's the only authoritative source on all the different adrenochrome research that I've put together. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Now, did you make them videos where they show the Native American shit?
Did I make them or did I see them?
Did you make those?
I didn't make the Native American videos, though.
Oh, I didn't know if you were the same guy, because the thing I saw, it was like hard to find. I think it's like one of the things that gets taken down. You have to finally go to like Odyssey to see it or something. But they're talking about the Iroquois with the because they all do that martial cannibalism shit, right? They'll torture people and eat them, which I've heard people describe as a torture and like the worst of the worst. Like cartels, and let's just say cartels, because I find people think it's easier to believe crazy things like that if you say a Mexican did it. People don't believe their leaders would ever do that, but they think that, in Africa, General Butt Naked would eat your kid's heart in front of you. You've heard those stories, right?
Well, and Native Americans too. I don't want to fall into the noble savage fallacy where Native Americans were doing the same things that the Mexicans were doing.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying I don't think we ever I don't think they ever changed policy. I just think maybe those gods are wonderful fucking drag queen human trafficker founders. I think they just like made deals with those gods of the Indians and kind of muscled them out,
There's actually some really crazy historical evidence too about these international like child trafficking rings in Central and South America that predate even the colonial era, where they would find remnants of children that were scattered like 3,000 miles away, but they would find them all in these caves, and the caves would just be filled with children's bones that were essentially these global sacrificial rituals that they were all getting together to do, like cross-cultural.
Whoa, that's wild. Is that well, that's wild. Anyway, there's a reason I brought it up. So the guy in the thing that I was watching was suggesting, and I know Canada, a lot of the research was done, right? The scientists that were trying to look into that, is that the tale? Supposedly somebody was using adrenaline from somebody dying because they were out of morphine or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's a little bit scattered. The real origin was that first they discovered adrenaline about 1901 was the first time it was synthesized by a Japanese scientist in like New York City. And then from there, they started to realize all the correlation between adrenaline and methamphetamine, essentially, like amphetamines. So once that connection starts being made, then they start looking into the byproducts of adrenaline. What else can adrenaline produce? And one of the first byproducts that comes out of that is adrenochrome. It was discovered in like 1930s or so by a guy that was doing experiments on rabbits. And he noticed that when the clear adrenaline met the air, it immediately turned like a vibrant red or purple color. And that's why he called it adrenochrome. It means the color of their adrenals. So the first time that color was assigned to any kind of adrenaline, that's what essentially became like the birth of knowing about adrenochrome. This is like 1930 or so.
And then who are those scientists? Do you remember their names? Or
Dr. Abram Hoffer was the guy that did some of the original research. The guy that actually discovered that, I believe his name was Richter, Dr. Richter, but he didn't have necessarily any kind of purpose for it. He just noticed it visually. It was Dr. Abram Hoffer, John Smithies, and a small handful of other guys that actually end up doing all this research. And here it dovetails almost immediately in the conspiracy theory realm.
Why?
The main reason is because if you look to see who was funding this, It all came from a guy named Nolan, and Nolan was tasked by the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Supreme Council, Northern Jurisdiction, huge long title on his business card. But he was tasked with what can we do with Scottish Rite money to advance humanity, to kind of like put our stamp on it. And they honed in on figuring out what they called dementia praecox at the time, which just meant early onset dementia. That's where the studies that you were mentioning, people like testing out the blood, can it do certain things? That was because they were noticing a 4 to 10 times higher amount of adrenochrome in schizophrenic patients than in normal people. So then the idea was like, well, if we do a blood transfusion from a normal person to a schizophrenic, does it fix them? And if we put the blood of a schizophrenic into a normal person, do they turn schizophrenic? That's kind of where all of the psychedelic aspect came from.
And did it? I'm not clear on what the effects were because I've heard various things on the one of the doctors shot it up and had a weird where he felt more like empathy with his lamp than his sister and shit. But I don't.
So it gets mixed, man. So if you look at the original report, Dr. Abram Hoffer and Smithies, like the two guys that were actually in the dirt doing adrenochrome personally, they were doing it on themselves. They gave it to their wives, their colleagues. They tested it on like 15 different animals, monkeys, pigeons, fish, all across the board. Those two guys said unequivocally it was an incredibly intense psychedelic. They didn't even have to shoot it up. They were doing it sublingually. So they just put pure adrenochrome under their tongue and said that they were having hallucinations that rivaled mescaline experiments. But once they started sharing these reports with other scientists within their sphere, those other scientists were like, yeah, I don't believe you. And they were basically writing reports saying that it was incorrect and that this couldn't possibly be psychedelic. But Smithies and Osmond directly have reports where they said, it's so curious that the people that were naysaying their research were the people that weren't actually doing it.
Well, I mean, it's not curious at all. First of all, if you know the shit they were just doing with LSD, no high interest in hallucinogenics and just to see what you could do to somebody with it and how utterly backed by Nazi science and LSD research, a lot of it came from Nazi shit too. Duncan found a bunch of shit on it actually. Duncan, my buddy Duncan Trussell. So okay, so this is stronger than that because there ain't no way DMT got out there without somebody in a CIA thing going, we need to like put this out there. People got to try this shit. There ain't no fucking way. They put that shit out there and they wanted to see what it'd do. So right about then, to me, it sounds like a good old fashioned sheep dipping where you discredit the guy and then you take the research and do your own thing with it. It's going to be classified right now. What year is this where they're doing it again? Tell me.
We're in the early 1950s when they start releasing some of this research, and just like clockwork, exactly as you're mentioning, there's this thing that happens in the early 1950s which explains why adrenochrome research goes from being publicly funded and all the results being published to all of a sudden it doesn't exist anymore. No one's heard of it. It doesn't have any valid use in medicine, and that's because the funding changed hands from being in the Scottish Rite, and then it went over to the Rockefeller Foundation, and then from the Rockefeller Foundation it gets consumed by the CIA essentially, and then it gets into the fold in MK Ultra research. And I personally found an example of this where there was a declassified MK Ultra video where the person in the video is specifically telling a room full of CIA agents that adrenochrome is a psychedelic and that they had developed an antidote for psychedelics called MER-17, which would basically neutralize LSD, adrenochrome that he mentions by name, and a few others.
MER-17, what is that?
MER-17, that was the code name. If you look up MER-17 now, what's that?
Wait, and then that becomes what?
MER-17 becomes some actual drug that you can get now, I believe. But it was originally a top secret antidote for psychedelics. So if you were out in the field and you got dosed by LSD and you wanted to figure out a way to undo that, you would take this MER-17.
What the fuck? I never heard of that.
Yeah, well, and this video is the only video that I can find that proves that the U.S. government did consider adrenochrome as a psychedelic. They say verbatim that in this video, because the more you do adrenochrome research, it almost comes up as it's never had a medicinal qualities. It's never had any useful research done by the military, and that there's no link to being psychedelic. Well, most people heard from it from Hunter S. Thompson. That
Yeah,
there's
and I was like, "Oh, is that like a hallucinogen you could find?" I thought it was like some kind of acid. When we saw that movie, okay, I never read the book of. I read.
it's even more explicit in the book. They talk about getting it from Satanists. So that's also where the lineage of you
Yeah,
have to
well,
torture
yeah,
people, you have to do
mhm.
Satanist things.
Yeah, and so I don't believe Anton LaVey is just some garden-grown fucking atheist satanic cult because there's too many intelligence connections and important people to him. And then that other piece of shit, Aquino, goes on to be in the DIA, and him and Paul Vallely write that wonderful fucking mind. These things are all, and by the way, all the '60s bullshit. I can't get over this because they always say China was this. They go China, the generals, their kids run the country. It's like kind of ruled by the sons and daughters of the original generals. Is how they talk about China, right? Yeah, so's here. All the music that's like the music for all the movies and all the things and the actors, their parents are all in the fucking Air Force and shit. Why? Isn't that weird?
I mean, my favorite one is Frank Zappa. His
Yeah,
dad
that's my
was
favorite too. Arsenal Arm is it
yeah,
Arsenal Arm or
Edward
no.
Arsenal, where he specifically was working on biochemical warfare, although on paper was not necessarily a CIA agent, but was working with CIA agents for
It's all
CIA
a cutout.
purposes.
Everything's a cutout of a cutout. Um, wait, what's it called again? Edgewood Arsenal?
Edgewood Arsenal, yeah.
And Jacob's Ladder is based on that, isn't it?
And also the entire story about Frank Olson getting pushed out of the window, which was written about in Terrible Mistake. There's the HBO series called Wormwood that was entirely about that. He also
That's about
worked at
Edgewood
Edgewood Arsenal.
Arsenal.
That's all Edgewood Arsenal, yes.
So that it wasn't LSD because Edgewood Arsenal. I couldn't believe it when I actually looked at it, what they were doing.
It
But
was
they were giving
germ
people.
warfare, essentially.
Say again.
Germ warfare was one of the main things that Edgewood Arsenal was in
Oh yeah.
charge of.
Well, I mean, hey, just standard illegal bioweapons warfare. Of course, I expected I expected that, but I'm talking about some cold ass shit, not just a mere bioweapons. and Benadryl, the worst high there is. That I've never tried it, but people will take Benadryl until they see the Hat Man, right? The Hat Man thing where
Oh
you
no,
got.
yeah, I know all about the robo tripping what these kids do.
Well, Robitussin is different. Is a different thing. Benadryl is where you take those pink pills. People take that a lot, and the chemical, the hallucinogen in that. It's also what Bill Cosby was using for his later when he didn't have lewds no more, which I find is like dark to use Benadryl like that. People take it sometimes. It's for allergies, but you go to sleep. But people abuse it. It was on Irowid Drug Vault for years. People's trip reports on Benadryl, and it sounded like the worst shit you've ever heard in your life, and you're fucked up for a while after. Okay, and druggies like, don't do that. Just any other. They're trying to give them chemical compounds to try instead of that. These maniacs would do this on Benadryl, but it's all dark spiders and the Hat Man. Okay, the fucking military they distilled whatever that chemical is, and these soldiers. So and I mean, this is iconic horror shit we get from this, really, from Jacob's Ladder, the vibrating and all that. They put in Silent Hill and all that. That's all from one source where these people were on the peak of a Benadryl trip for like 14 days straight. So like, and the nightmare of that, if you're on peak Benadryl, but the government isolated it like perfectly to see what it would do to you. I mean, dude, that must have been real bad, dude. Can you
Well,
imagine that?
they would give incredible doses. In some of the earliest MK Ultra psychedelic research, it came from this guy William Donovan, and they called him Donovan's Dreamers. And Donovan was at Camp X,
That's not
which is
Wild Bill, is it?
yeah, Wild Bill Donovan. That's absolutely him.
Oh, so
And
he's known for doing that shit?
well, Wild Bill Donovan is one of the first ones that was attributed to giving military recruits, intense amounts of psychedelics just to kind of see what would happen, and that their names were Donovan's Dreamers, and it was everything from hash to LSD to I believe they had Datura. There was like a lot of Datura that was being used, which was also kind of considered like a terror drug.
DATURA.
Angel trumpets, yeah.
I thought you were like saying the Torah, like the first. Like
Well, that too, that came a little bit later, but Datura, which is also what you put behind your ear now if you're gonna get like seasickness, whatever. That originally came from this early MK Ultra research. And just to put a hat on a hat here, Another big example is magic
Whoa, 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 wait,
mushroom.
wait, 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 wait. Sorry, I just got a
Go
message here
ahead.
from Mark. The Hat Man is no Legba. Wait, so Papa Legba is the Hat Man? Is that what you're saying, Mark?
Well,
Uh,
Legba
Yeah.
actually is the guy that stands in between realms, right? He's the gatekeeper between like the waking world and the underworld,
oh, so
essentially.
they've seen the voodoo. I thought Mark was just being racist because they're like, oh, he has a dark
But he's
shadow.
the
No,
El Legba.
He's very
no, I'm
dark.
saying
He's
there's a history of this hat
yeah,
man going back throughout the world, is
yeah, that's right.
particularly cultures that use psychedelic
Hmm.
drugs like African black magic. They would have been using all sorts of plant medicines, and the same thing with different shamans.
But is he known to be a bad, like a shitty guy? Because the people on Benadryl, I mean, is it just him going, "What are you, a fucking piece of shit doing Benadryl?" Like,
Well, like Thomas
why
said,
is he
he's
looking
at
at him
the
like that?
gateway.
I guess he's looking how I would look at him.
He's at like the precipice between here, here in the underworld, so to speak.
I mean, it sounds like Papa Legba as the Hat Man.
Yeah, I never put that together, dude. Until you put that, I never even thought to connect that. But I bet you're right. I
Well,
mean, real.
stacking on top of that, because we wouldn't know about that in the Western world without intelligence, essentially. It's exactly the same path we got to magic mushrooms was from Dr. Gordon Wasson, who was VP of Finance at JP Chase Morgan Jr., and he's the one that actually discovered magic mushrooms and something called Salvia divinorum. Without
What?
him being funded by the CIA, we wouldn't have had either of those. And more likely we would never even know what Salvia divinorum was without the exact same guy. And he brings it to Henry Luce, who was a Skull and Bones member. He was a member of the Century Club, and he was good friends with Wasson. And Henry Luce is the one that ends up putting out magazines and Reader's Digest. So now your mom knows what magic mushrooms are because of this connection
Right.
between Luce and
Yo,
Wasson.
remember Details magazine back in like I don't know, I was in high school, so like 94, 95. I graduated in 95, but Details, it was like a lad mag from England. And that's why I first read about Terence McKenna, about the guy that says there's really tiny self-transforming machines in the if you take DMT, you can see them. Okay. And then I started thinking about Hunter S. Thompson. Is he a warlock? Why the fuck does he have a warlock bag wherever he goes? That's what a warlock bag is. It's all your potions and shit. And when you hear Monarch people talk, that's their controllers. They have little doctor bags of fun drugs, and they'll mix you up a little poshy. Like everybody gets hung up on adrenochrome, but I don't know if you've ever heard this, but multiple people now have told me that is some low level shit for like losers, almost like a shitty synthetic drug they were giving out to cause addiction, like a fentanyl level fucking bad
I could
drug.
believe it. I could believe because adrenochrome, from all the reports, it's not really that strong. Even if it can be comparable to mescaline in the right conditions, it's far too unstable. Although there was another byproduct of adrenaline that Smithies and Dr. Abram Hoffer also researched called adrenolutin. And adrenolutin was described as being goldish green, and that they stopped testing with it because the effects lasted for over a week. So they just
Oh, I
found
was
it
confusing
way
that.
too hard.
Okay, I was confused. I'm glad you said that because that's what I was talking about with the guy for a week. He was like messed up for a week from it. That
Oh
was
yeah, that was in their notes that they said that it was no longer sustainable to continue testing because no one could be willing to be out of their sorts for over a week on a consistent basis to where they could get information that would make it into the report. So they had to stop doing adrenolutin and refocus on just adrenochrome again.
Okay, so I'm guessing that meant because if they're going to test you on a Benadryl high that lasts fucking 6 to 8 business weeks, I'm sure they just started testing it on people they could test on. There's no way they're not going to do all the bio, like every awful thing you could imagine. They're going to do that. I mean, just 100%, and they're going to do it on sheerly on the principle of what if the enemy does it first? Okay, you don't have to get supernatural with it if you don't want. Just look at what they've done. They tested out the atomic bomb when people were like, okay, there's a little chance, it's not big, but we could ignite the whole atmosphere of the planet and kill ourselves. And they're like, well, we got to still do it. You know what I mean? Like the people in charge go, well, it's too important. We got to do this.
There's some wild connections between that as well, like a Manhattan Project and doing all the atomic testing and adrenochrome.
Yeah. Will you talk about that? You know about that? Because I was just heard something about it. And okay, I'm glad you brought that up, man.
Yeah, so there was these little worms that a guy was breeding in the 1930s, 1940s, and the premise was that you could train these little worms to go through a maze, and you could also cut these little worms in half, and they would like regrow themselves, not like an earthworm.
Okay.
And one of the premises was, can I train a worm to go through a maze, cut it in half? Well, both of those halves know how to get through the maze. And he found out, yeah, that they were able to do this. So then he keeps theorizing, and eventually he saw a Doublemint ad in a magazine, like in a Playboy or something, and the Doublemint out with the twins, and he immediately thought, what if I feed one of these worms to the other worm? Well, the worm that eats the one that knows how to get through the maze will inherit its knowledge, and that became the one of the original premises. And he got his original resources and his standing by actually being at Bikini Atoll, where they were actually doing some of this testing. And you'll start, just like you notice this pattern where rock icons parents are in intelligence, the exact same thing, that people that were part of the Manhattan Project or part of atomic testing, they also end up becoming incredibly successful in totally unrelated aspects of culture after that happens.
Oh, well, as they should. And my boy Andy Hunt put up the John Denver. I can't, John Denver's real name is like Deuten Schmidt or some von Deutschen fucking Harbin. It's something hilarious. His real name in German. His dad, he's from Roswell. His dad flew the experimental aircrafts and shit in Roswell. Then they like move before the supposed Roswell crash, and he died in a weird, suspicious plane crash. Dude, all of them, they're all, and dude, friends of mine. I can't believe the connections they have to things. It
Next
blows
you're
my
going to
mind.
tell me the Windsor family's German or something.
Yeah, no, right. And that's I always want to, when Jimmy Carr comes back, I'm gonna, because I always talk to that guy a lot when he comes, and because I'm like, what do you know they're German? Like that's a Blackadder fucking reference, where he's taking care of House who's playing Prince George. He goes, I'm English. He goes, I'm English. You're bloody German. Like it's like a sly joke. So how do they have this kind of loyalty for like the Germans that rule that? It makes no sense to me.
It makes a little sense to me when I think about it in Jordan Maxwell terms. I don't know if you've gone down the deep like Jordan
Yeah, I have.
Maxwell. He's got this really great
It's
one
like
where
Frank Miller drawing that guy.
well, he's describing like a courtroom and how it's like a big game, and that's why they lob the ball back and forth in the court. But he makes this point that if you go to NBA championship game, right, you might be the biggest fan of your team, but after that game's over and everyone goes to a bar, like the players on opposing teams are going to have a drink with each other before they'll have a drink with their biggest fans, because it's more about the class you're in and not about the side that you're on.
Yeah,
So
I don't know how, dude. As my friends Joaquin and Boaz, the two pillars of Freemasonry next to me, I don't know how people have not put that together yet. It's like if you don't put it together, you're not gonna. And I think a major trick to it, by the way, to get away with it, is to make it about if you like a person or not. It's just like school has destroyed everybody's brain, dude. Where they're getting high school in their head. That's the goal of it. And they make you like, we covered all the TPUSA shit, which is insane. Dude, it's insane. Every part of it is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I realized because there's no longer any shared thing everybody watches together, you can get away with it. You can get away with shit because not everybody's watching the same shit like they used to,
Yeah,
And
there's no more water cooler talk. We're not watching the same movies and TV to have the same frames of
They
reference.
atomized you successfully, just like the commies told you they were going to do.
Well, on its own tangent, but that is only going to get exacerbated more because the next future is, hey, did you listen to that new album? But like your album was going to be like an AI tweaked version that's got like your preferences in it, or like the movie that you saw. Yeah,
you can build your own Matrix,
movie, but mine had Al Pacino in it.
That's the promise of the West, is that you will get a hand in building your own Matrix, your own prison.
That's been the promise since forever, but I think we've seen that it pans out. It's not so much
You'll pick what we want you to pick, but you're gonna feel like you did. You're gonna feel like you helped. After I preload your brain with horse shit and I fucking turn you into either a Spurg or a fucking schizo, the old last two. I want to get that guy. You ever see that guy, P.F. Chang?
The restaurant?
Sorry, P.F. Young, P.F. Jung. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, go on.
Okay, he's got great hair. That's all. That's the main thing. But
he's got my vote.
He's putting up these like radical I don't know. He's got some. I don't know what his fucking deal is, or if he's like an astroturf. The guy's got great hair, I know that. But he'll do these diagrams that are like they look like occult drawings, but they're purely secular, I assure you. And but he said something about schizo and autism being the two new. I think he's on. I think he's dead right about it. There's going to be schizo and autism are going to be the two. No, not Professor Zhang. Oh, we're getting Professor Zhang, by the way. But no, I'm talking about P.F. Young, like Carl Young with a J.
Well,
I watched him talk to Destiny for some reason. Why would you, dude? And who's gonna watch Destiny or any of this stupid shit? Like it's an adult. I do. I watch all the dumb shit, dude. And I watch. Everybody else just look at everybody else. You should just watch other stuff, dude. You gotta look at it. You don't have to read that much even. It's literally they got you split so well to like this is what I'm into and nothing else. I don't even blame the algorithm. I find all kind of weird shit from the algorithm because I had my taste is to find weird shit, so I get it, you know. But a lot of they already
would
got
you
you.
want to be in a group of other people that find the same weird shit that you do? Like
Hey, what?
Go do like a meetup in real life with other people that are finding the same
Well,
weird
I'll put them on my
shit on the
show.
internet?
I'll put them on my podcast.
Okay, maybe not in person.
I don't know. Most of the stuff now is like the Venezuela thing's amazing because there's all these like AIs of people celebrating, and I know people from Venezuela that are like, yeah, I'm happy, but they are from wealthier families in Venezuela, and they're like, yeah, no, we should give them our oil. There's all these what do you call it? Nobody knows like the news, like they'll talk about all this shit, but they don't know current events at all, and if they think they do, dude, the alien people talking about current events. You watch Linda Moulton Howe, who's like an aggregator of spooky stories, right? I'm not saying whether she's good or bad or anything. I watch it a lot. One of my friends was a psychic X that I found out it was Buddy Bolton, this comic I used to dog sit for. He would do remote viewing. This is when they started really first pushing remote viewing. And there's a couple of comedians. One is a friend of mine, Buddy Bolton, became a remote viewer and was good at it apparently. And anyway, she'll be talking about this or that. It'll be interesting, right? But then all of a sudden she talks about Ukraine, about how Putin's one man's fucking greed bitch, are you talking about Putin? Are you part of the thing? As soon as you start saying that stupid shit to me about Ukraine, I know you're on the side of something bad, right? Then I hear Lou Elizondo blathering and showing fake pictures.
I mean, that's the rough part. If someone's remote viewing or they're revisiting past lives, you don't know the point in which they're recounting what they're actually seeing versus crap that they're just throwing in there because they got a platform now.
People did remote viewing, by the way. I think there's something to it. I don't think there's nothing to it, but I'm highly suspicious of the fact that they're saying this now. Oh, should I put on Monroe Institute fucking sounds so I can do it myself at home? Okay. Why are they pushing it? Why is it being pushed so hard? It's not suppressed, right?
Well, you've got the other side too. I don't know if you heard of James Randi and the Randi Challenge. That also gets put up as like a fabricated alternate. Like here's
dude,
a control group
talking about that because he's a creep. I think he's a creep. I used to be a real fan of his, what he did, and now I think he's part of an intel operation with Uri Geller doing a little Punch and Judy act. That's what I think.
I don't know if you've seen the documentary about James Randi.
Honest Liar, it's called.
Yeah, where he didn't even realize that like his live-in boyfriend was conning him the entire time, yet he's supposed to be this like con breaker.
He realized it. That guy probably worked for Mossad.
Yeah.
Honest to God, he probably worked for fucking Mossad. Uri Geller worked for Mossad. He's Israeli. Avi, fucking the descendant of Baal Shem Tov, the fucking founder of Haredi Judaism. That's who Avi Loeb is. He's the one pushing Three Eye Atlas, Third Eye Atlas, the king of Poseidon of Atlanta. They always got a Twilight language, these words in your fucking head. That's what this motherfucker, and I don't know why all of them, to the Masons, the Mormons, the fucking Jesuits, the Crowley people, name your fucking poison. They're all into Kabbalah. They all love Kabbalah. That's their main. Dude, in fact, I think the alt-right pipeline they made against my buddy Gary from Neurotic and a bunch of people, I think they used a Kabbalah tree now that I look back on it.
I mean, it makes sense because it's a blueprint, right? It's a blueprint on how to
That's right.
manifest a thought into reality. And the more times you do it, then it's kind of like a copy of a copy of a copy, right? So the general
Mhm.
premise of most Kabbalists is that modern day people that are still trying to replicate nature, they're working in holograms and simulations now, and that it's all been distorted because it's been so far from source. But I guess when you get into like the Masons and the Bavarian Illuminati and
It all
everyone that
goes as one
is
thing,
claiming
which,
this,
by the way, is not in the fucking I mean, like, I didn't know Torah could mean the actual Torah, the written down one that's in the Bible, right? But it also, if depending on what sect you're in, it means the spoken Torah, which is the Talmud legal arguments and or Kabbalah or whatever Babylonian shit. If you don't look at everybody's religions and like see those commonalities and whatever, you can't put the whole thing together. But basically now everyone is running, because I think that Kabbalah tree is a mind overlay, just like a rosy cross, right? What you just said, you're ordering your thoughts to make it. That's what it's for. It's a training thing to like and to pattern people. That's why they want you to wear those Monroe Institute fucking headphones and listen to binaural beats that they're trying to overlay brain patterns on your fucking brain, dude.
I mean, I think
Fucking
they're all
crazy.
just different flavors too, right? Because there was a very explicit moment in time in the 18th century when the Jesuits were fighting against the Masons, which were fighting against the Rosicrucians, which were fighting against
But
the
now it's a
Bavarian
lot of
Illuminati.
crossover. It's all cool now, dude. Those names don't mean a goddamn. They don't make any difference. It's a real simple way to understand it. All those groups are literally to see who's got the right DNA to be in the upper group, because it turns out there's two races of people. That's not a thing I thought. These people think it, and they made all these little stupid mystery clubs and all this dumb shit, dude. Where you can't just know what it is you believe until you've paid enough money and invested enough in it, and then they'll tell you the truth, so you can't back out. I don't know how this works over and over. I'll never know, but it just works eternally. They all do that. That's what fucking magic is, and NLP is to keep you in it. So everything from Andrew Tate University to the fucking DIA are all the same horseshit, dude. They're all some fucking wizard NLP bullshit to carve your brain up into sections and store what I want to store in there, which may or may not be what you want, and probably is not what you want.
Well, the connective tissue usually is some kind of a secret society. Like here's another example. I don't know if you heard this one before, but
Yeah, they can
one
form
of
little Kabbalah fruits on the trees, little
well,
Sephira.
they used the actual like one of the Dulles brothers. I can't remember if it was John Foster or Alan Dulles, but they made their name by going overseas and investigating it was originally considered like an anti-Semitic work of the protocols of the
Oh
elders of
yeah, right.
Zion, right? And he actually made it a point to show that that was a plagiarized form from one of the Russian czars, and that they had actually repurposed it from like French masonry. But
It's been
him just
purposed a
doing that
lot.
report and putting the Dulles name next to, and we helped prove that that this document was plagiarized. That's what got him all his political clout to start in the intelligence agency to begin with. So it's wild that even the founding of the CIA
Well, I'm
can be
sure
traced to the
it goes
Illuminati.
before that. I'm sure. I mean, look, like I said, it's bloodline. It's be like being Harry Potter and Muggle shit is what the. It's like it's that bullshit. So they all got their stories of how they get their start, but dude, if it's in your DNA, your family's been involved in it. You got groomed into it. It goes back. I don't know when. I don't think Prescott Bush started the thing where they fuck Geronimo's skull or whatever they do.
Yeah, Fort Sill, yeah, where it was Prescott Bush stole it with two of the Brown brothers, I believe.
Yeah, and then like these families go back a long way, and you can hear the stories of people who got abused in these and I some of them it does go back a long way, whatever their weirdo cult, but I'll bet not as long as they think. I bet like let's say I start my own Scientology in 1600, right, with a secret Xenu at the end of it, right? Instead of Jobulon like a Mason, it's Xenu.
You would have been way ahead of your time, but yeah.
Oh yeah, and I get a whole group together, and then and because it was so ahead of its time, and all I got to do is get the right rich people, and I got to get them to program their kids with my new program, okay, with my Montessori religion, and
Well,
then
there's
I
actually
can have some
there's one other element that's almost universal in successful secret societies, and that's the blackmail angle. And that's actually where Adam Weishaupt and the Bavarian Illuminati really honed this formula in, because if you wanted to be a member, you'd have to take a complete account of everything you did that day and keep a journal and then pass it up to your higher handlers.
That's some
Then
real
they could have other
Scientology.
people doing that on you too,
You'd
and
be
they compare
audited.
notes.
Really?
they were all
I didn't know
audited.
that aspect, that they did Scientology audits where everything you did. That's like, what's funny is because they supposedly hated like the church and like going to confession, but that sounds like more work than going to
Well, it's the same thing. Adam Weishaupt in the Bavarian Illuminati, he was basically, if not an atheist, he was a deist, an anti-Jesuit deist, and he used the exact
I thought
same
the
technique.
Jesuits set him up to that. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, a little bit, because what happened is that the Jesuits had been in control of academia for 2 centuries, and so he existed. I mean, he's like a fish inside water, right? So he exists in this Jesuit system, but once the Pope gets rid of the Jesuits, he kicks them out of authority. His uncle was teaching at Ingolstadt, and his uncle was basically, well, hell, I can't hire any more Jesuits. I'll hire my nephew. Now my nephew's going to be a head professor of canon law. That only happened because the Jesuits got kicked out, and Adam Weishaupt was a little bit scorned. He was kind of like, screw these Jesuits. They didn't let me read the books I wanted to read. I couldn't talk about the earth being in the center of the universe, or the sun being the center of the universe. So I don't want anything to do with Jesuits, and I'm going to make sure that anyone else that I hire or that I work with, they can't be Jesuits either. So part of the initiation rituals and becoming part of the Bavarian Illuminati is they would have to do something that would be considered blasphemous. A lot of the same charges that were made against the Knights Templar, like you'd have to do something blasphemous, and it was in order to prove that you weren't bound by the same superstitions that you were trying to get away from.
Well, that all sounds like a sheep dipping to me. One, the Templars, they weren't just tortured. Tracy Twyman research tells you all about it. It's really fascinating. It's a frat that got 2 Diddy partied up, and a bunch of them weren't into it. Okay, they hooked up with Saracens. They started doing this weird Ophite serpent worship. They used that skull as a goddamn Ouija board, and that Baphomet some alchemical creation. It just gets gayer and gayer, dude. I mean, and so the church put out this leather-bound book that was like 12 grand it cost, of all the interviews, and it wasn't translated. It was like in whatever Latin or whatever they were doing it in. And Tracy Twyman fucking read it and describes it. And it starts out where they're like, okay, we're priests basically, like warrior priests. You can't, but if you gotta fuck, go get a hooker and don't let nobody see. It started out like that. But gradually it became like, no, if you fuck a woman, anybody find, you got to kill her and the kid. Then it became, you got to be a little, look, do something with one of your brothers if you need to do something. Then it became, you have to do something with your brothers if they ask. So you see how it degenerates into a goddamn gay frat? Like a real Bohemian Grove shit you've heard of.
Yeah,
it's otherwise
you have to let girls in, right? Otherwise, you're going to be too so you got to have the homie rub you off, so that way you don't have inclination to start inviting the girls.
And we're all doing it because there's not photography back then to take pictures. You just got
to draw really fast.
Yeah, they didn't Blackadder, you painted the guy, but it's just you do something really crazy that you're so traumatized. People will know, you know what I mean? Like we both did this together, just gang shit. It's initiation. It's called initiation. And they've kept it up the whole time. And if you know about the Frankists, those are like anti-Jews. They fucking hated the Jews, even though they were supposedly Jewish. They're like Crowley hated the fucking Plymouth Brethren, right? Crowley's like I love Satan now or whatever. I'm wicked. These are like these opposite inverted versions of their religions from disgruntled people that come out of it. And then what they do is, and I'll bet you anything that's Sabbaty and Frankists, the protocols, because it's been rewritten in various forms a lot. I've seen versions of that, like the Illuminati one that somebody found in the 90s sounds just like the protocol. And I've heard Zion isn't Zion, it's Scion, S-C-I-O-N is what it's supposed to be. And maybe it is, I don't know, but it's all the same shit. It's a secret code if you're the right bloodline, and we'll find out over time if you are, and what we can use you for, like Departed. You'll move up, and if you're not, you'll be looking at esoteric stenography bullshit your whole life like a jerk off. You're like, well, the unicorn symbolizes Christ. You'll be doing that shit forever. But if you got the right blood, you'll move right up.
I can actually tie this all the way back to adrenochrome too, because there's this one thing, and it all comes down to the bloodlines and the genealogy, and it starts with, why did they even look into adrenochrome to begin with? It was because of this dementia praecox, and the reason they cared about dementia praecox is because if you're rich and you're old and you've got this huge legacy and you want to pass it on to your progeny, and your son's like 20 years old, but he's starting to act schizophrenic, it's a problem because if grandpa starts acting weird, it's just like, oh well, he's sundowning a little bit, right? Every
we
old
do
grandpa
every
acts like that.
precaution. We inbred for centuries, and then
Right.
you know it.
But
we have
when
mental-
they're 20 or when they're 30 and you're ready to pass the reins and your kid is acting like a schizophrenic, you don't have time to go and pump out another kid and wait 20 or 30
No.
years. So it actually gets pretty specific, that them trying to figure out, how do I make it so my kid doesn't become a schizophrenic, dot dot dot, after 30 or 40 years they think eugenics is the only way. We have to weed this out of our entire family line, which means we need to weed it out of everyone else's family lines, because if my great grandkid bangs your great grandkid but you haven't been doing eugenics like our family has, then you're going to screw it for everyone. You're going to have the dirt in the punch bowl in the form of your great grandkid, right? So the very origin of adrenochrome research turns into eugenics research.
Yeah, no, the projection, of course, eugenics. Of course, these families that are inbred till their chins and foreheads fucking touch have the nerve to be like, all of you need to stop breeding the lower. Yo, you inbred yourselves till you look like reptiles, apparently. And then they're going to tell you about eugenics.
But interesting enough, you only have to cut down on the inbreeding for like one generation, and you can get back to it for like 4 or 5, as long as you keep
Victoria
bringing in new blood. And you brought up Bohemian Grove. I can go on a really deep call. I'll give you the high level cut of this one, but James Frazier wrote this series of books in the late 1800s called The Golden Bough. It was like Stanley Kubrick's go-to unabridged collection, right? The entire premise of The Golden Bough is this exactly. It's to get rid of inbreeding. The whole concept of killing the divine king, killing the sacred king, King Kill 33 ritual, all that. This came from Frazier. And ultimately, the idea was that it had to be an outside stranger that came from a different kingdom, had to infiltrate your kingdom, kill the king, and then marry the princess, and eventually raise that entire kingdom up another level. And the whole reason this had to happen this way was because it had to be an outsider to guarantee that there wouldn't be more inbreeding. So this is like my favorite example of this. It's a million stories, but Robin Hood's a great one, where Robin Hood has to go from in the middle of the woods into the kingdom, has to dress up, he has to hide himself, because everyone knows that Robin Hood's here to take the hand of Maid Marian. So he has to win a merit-based competition, which now shows it's not just about nepotism, but you have to prove that you're worthy. So you've got an outsider that dresses up incognito, wins the competition of merit, and then if this were accurate, he would have killed the king and then taken the hand of Maid Marian. But that recipe of folklore is really how to not inbreed your kingdom out of existence.
Right. That's very
and the connection here to Bohemian Grove is trying to invert that. The whole premise of the cremation of care is that you get a bunch of nepo babies together in one place. They bang each other, right? They all hang, like they handle each other so that a woman doesn't have to come in. And then the culmination is the cremation of care ritual. And this is where an outsider is supposed to come in and save care, but they prevent that from happening and they kill care. This is a literal obstruction of the Golden Bough. They're trying to invert the Golden Bough, because the Golden Bough talks about a matriarchy in which the power gets passed through merit through the family line. But in the Bohemian Grove, it's all nepotism. It's that if I'm rich and I have a kid, my kid's rich, and if he has a kid, they're rich, and that's essentially inbreeding.
Because all these royal families are they are all matrilineal blood. Like, they're related. It's really wild how they're related, and it's all matrilineal, all of it. The thing with Bohemian Grove is, well, that's, by the way, I never heard none of that. It's very interesting what you just said. But all those guys, there's this weird like homo-orphic thing of like, I want to come on a rock and have a baby instead of a woman. Like there surely must be a way with that icky vagina being involved that I can have a progeny.
Like a homunculus. Yeah, this is like
Yeah.
the old alchemist living in the woods, and he doesn't want to be around icky girls, so he's just gonna jerk off into some cow dung and hope that it grows legs.
Yeah, I mean the symbolism is thick with that one. That's like, yeah, you're gonna come in get some. Oh God, it sounds like in the Solomon, his fucking magic Pokemon ring where he captures demons like Pokemon.
Yeah, and he
He
hasn't
go-
built his temple. Yeah, this is where
Yeah,
the
Solomon.
purple
I want to
pillar
make a
comes
Solomon,
from.
but he goes. One guy was afflicted by a demon would come in and suck his thumb at night. Oh no, my thumb was sucked once again. It's just like the between the line shit to me is so funny with these stories. They're all just like fucking a guy in the ass and they gotta dress it up. Anyway, adrenochrome, from what I understand, have you heard anything else about this? That's just one of many things you harvest out of people. And this is an avenue I gotta research more, but I think it's the most interesting thing I've ever heard is generational funeral home families. A good place to look about for that kind of shit.
Well, so
Names you never heard of.
I've been trying to source adrenochrome for the last couple of years now, and I've got a lot of offers on the table, but unfortunately, it doesn't really come from my understanding. It doesn't come from funeral homes. Doesn't come from torturing people. You can, and when we first started
Some
talking, you were
EpiPens and leave them out.
well, you were talking about like these high end like apothecary sort of. I think that exists, right? There's someone out there that might spend $8,000 on a hamburger because it's got like gold crusting and they use the blood of like a virgin pigeon or
Sounds like
something, right?
Ormus. So Ormus, that gold people drink, monoatomic gold they call it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
gold
Exactly that.
Schlager to me, but
Or also
thing,
like ornament bunting, where the people will deep fry an entire bird and then like eat the whole thing whole,
right.
just because it's a status symbol more than anything else. You haven't
What
heard
kind
about
of
this
bird?
before? The ornament bunting?
I never heard of anything like that. But what kind of the bird is an ornithid? What's the
Ortofin bunting, like a small ortofin bird, and it's a French delicacy, but they basically overfeed it on champagne and they deep fry it, and you just eat the entire thing whole. The point being is that it's not because it tastes great. It's not because this is like a delicacy that people want. It's just this weird status symbol, and for the same reason, you might have someone out there that is doing the Hunter S. Thompson Satanist version of adrenochrome, where they're extracting it in the most nefarious way possible, and they're selling it to people, and they're doing
Lake
it.
Havasu, buddy. You ever hear about Lake Havasu yet in your travels? So Peru, you get a lot of good specimens from Peru. That's Amaru, their god. That's America's.
Yeah, Amaru, yeah.
The plumed serpent land we live in, Amaruca. So they traffic kids from there, specifically Peru, and it's because they got the blood of kings in them or some shit. And they had and the people doing this, they got levels. There's silver, gold, copper. So you like if you were in like a hair club
rewards plan.
Yes. Yeah. And Nathan Reynolds, I tell people to watch all the time because I think that guy spilled the beans on a lot of shit. And unlike many people, you can't even find him if you wanted to give the guy money or something. He's always off the grid. A lot of people name names, okay, and you'd be surprised. I know I am, but I know Monarch was real. Kathy O'Brien, who still believes in Trump, by the way.
It was part of the programming. That's why.
Yeah. But the younger generation of people that were in it, they know, dude, there's like a boomer level across every facet of society. So there's like boomer programmees that still believe in Trump. And then the younger ones like, nah, that's bullshit too. It's real sad. Anyway, she said Roger Clinton was the one heading up the White Rabbit distribution. You ever hear it called White Rabbit because it's something with the molecule?
I've heard of that. Well, it's based on the skeleton formula, which is like when you actually draw the indole out on adrenochrome, it kind of looks like a rabbit. There's also the Monsters Inc. soccer ball connection, because if you look at, have you heard about this one before? If you look at the skeleton formula for adrenochrome, you can overlay on top of a soccer ball, where the soccer ball's got the hexagon and the pentagon. So that actually makes the exact same formula. And in the opening scene of Monsters Inc., which is the movie where they harvest fear from children into these little canisters called Scream, which then power the rest of the elite city. But that in that very first scene, there's a soccer ball under the bed where the monster comes out to scare the kids. So that one also gets brought up as the rabbit slash soccer ball. Some of these are a little bit of a big stretch. However, the rabbit one I've come around on because, again, all of the original adrenochrome research from the 1930s all came out of rabbit experimentation. So there is an interesting rabbit connection to adrenochrome.
That's creepy. Anyway, I've just been told by several people that that's not that big of a deal and that there's much more sought after shit. And I suspect the Playboy Mansion thing where they were drawing people's blood at pig night, one of my favorite stories I've ever heard of pig night. You go in there and you can raw dog the pigs. You know, they're not bunnies. It's pig night. And you go through your underground tunnel which are real. The tunnels of the mansion, you can fuck whores that way without being seen. That's, you know? So, and then there's still that kind of shit all the time. Anyway, it's in Newsweek. You can find it, the article about what a piece of shit Hugh Hefner was, you know? Because he's Epstein. Okay. All of a sudden he's dead now. So now we give a shit that he was a pimp.
Well, and this was connected to Jack Nicholson's mansion, which was why Polanski got kicked out. And if you've read a lot of Tracy Twyman, you also know she's got a really deep dive on Polanski and
It's
Nicholson
fantastic.
and Sinatra.
Minnie's Moose.
Yeah, Minnie's Moose. Yeah, fantastic.
I sent it to a bunch of Neil from Gnostic Informer. I sent him that thing because he knows all this. He knows a bunch of fight and all this shit that I was curious about. And I was just wanting people, because it's very interesting the things, all that Twilight language shit. It's all so here's a thing I think is Twilight language, but I could be wrong. But I would just imagine, and this is an example, even if it's not, this is what it would be though if you were trying to do it. You know, the Bondi Beach false flag where ISIS shot up the Chabad Lubavitchers. By the way, ISIS, our friend ISIS, the head of the president of Syria that we just put in, is a founding member of ISIS who's in the beheading video of Daniel Pearl. I'm 90% sure he's in it. He would have had to have been. He's a founding member of ISIS and Al Qaeda. He went from Al Qaeda to ISIS. And it's not even, it's public knowledge, but nobody knows or gives a fuck. He's in the
even Al Qaeda is a CIA construct, right? Because Al Qaeda just meant like
we've all known it for years and no one gives a fuck. We've all known it. I guess what I thought back in the day was like, what a bunch of ingrates. We help them out with the Russians, and this is how they repay us. That's how I guess I processed it at the time when I was a fuckwit. But now you're going to tell me ISIS snuck on a beach to shoot up Chabad, which is a espionage thing. I promise you. Even if all the people, even if all the inbreds in it don't know, I was in Jehovah's Witnesses. We were missionaries and we're politically neutral. That's great. I would target that if I was intel. I would have a couple of missionaries. Oh, the Mormons. Anyway, fucking Bondi Beach. Okay, so what does Americans don't give a fuck about a shooting here like that much. They forgot most of the ones that happened over the last 2 years, right? And they're all really suspicious. Nobody gives a shit about none of them anymore.
Yeah, not until the Netflix special comes out, and then I'll care about it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's what everybody's said to is that. So how am I going to get? And you know, it's crazy, by the way, how all your rights are gone right now while people argue about if Candace is more reliable than Erica Kirk or whatever the fuck people dumb shit. I mean, that's probably highbrow. That's probably a highbrow argument. So anyway, we got distracted. And so Bondi Beach. Oh, that sounds like Pam Bondi. So that's resonance right there. You just I have a word kicking around in my head and you just got to trigger it. Okay. And then if you make the right amount of happy or hate juice in me in some way, like pickup artist, it's like pickup artist shit, but you could do it. You could scale that up and they do.
NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming. You're talking about like an audible anchor.
That is magic. That's what Mark Passio, I can't recommend enough either. And Mark Passio, just think of ancient people that know all psychological tricks when nobody else did. And you got your magic right there.
The original books on NLP were called The Structure of Magic by Bandler and Grinder. So they
I
knew
I
they
ordered
were
that.
about magic.
I ordered it because it's but the other component, I'm gonna have gray on, dude. I'm just curious because adrenochrome, there's all these other compounds, but I don't know what they are. And if you read Tracy Twyman didn't believe monarch people at first, and then as it progressed, she started believing them. I didn't believe them back when she was looking at it. I didn't even know about her. But then I go back and read it and I go, holy shit, this is explaining a lot of things that don't make any sense.
Well, I think aside from how potent or like what the efficacy of adrenochrome is, it represents something that no other drug has represented until now. It's a pretty new development because
Mhm.
before 1901, when they figured out how to synthesize adrenaline, every single drug, psychedelic or otherwise, came from plants. There really weren't any drugs that came from an animal, let alone a human being. And with adrenaline and now adrenochrome by proxy, you've
Really?
got drugs that come from human beings that
That's
never
what,
existed before.
dude, that's what okay, that's amazing. Okay, so Nathan was saying that about people worry about adrenochrome, but plasma-based medicine,
It all started with adrenaline in 1901.
that
Before
is
that,
really something, man.
there was no such thing as being able to take a drug from a mammal or a person, put it in you, and know that it would have a very specific effect. It started with adrenaline. Adrenochrome being a byproduct of adrenaline kind of gets folded into that. But the other thing is that you've got thousands of years of blood libel research and thousands of years of cannibalism and all of these practices where blood is being used to commune with gods and what have you, right? For thousands and thousands of years, but there was never really a scientific reason of, and here's proof that it works. Well, with adrenaline and with adrenochrome, now you actually have a secular scientific placeholder for what used to require a belief in the supernatural or religion. Now someone can be like, I'm an atheist, but I believe in adrenochrome, and adrenochrome comes from blood, and it has all these properties to it. Now it's no longer a religious argument, which is a very unique time now for that to represent that.
That's a really interesting point, too. Yeah, that's really, it's like finding a way to secularize all this old school wizard shit, and they've done it at every level. I mean, just saying an LP or yeah, that's really something.
And now
'Cause
you've got an actual chemical compound you can hold in your hand and say, this is what you've been talking about as blood libel. And now the attention, if you were actually present that in any kind of a public forum, it's going to be, nope, that's been discredited. There's no such thing. There's no research that proves that. But if you look into it, there 100% is research that proves it.
in
And
fact,
they're
I
learned by
bet
trained
you
scientists.
I could just be wrong about this, but I have a funny feeling because things that seem like a bad joke turn out to be true a lot to me. So I'll bet you there's more research available on the effects of adrenochrome than there is from the COVID vaccine that they dietary, and they wanted to hide it for 70 years in the court. Like, you're not allowed to see the test results. I'll bet you can find more about it than you could about COVID. Because no, people
all
just
of it
trust.
now, all the modern adrenochrome research all has to do with it being a blood coagulant, and then there's also people that put adrenaline drops in their eyes to fix some issue with like hormones. And if you have too much adrenaline put into your eyes, it'll eventually coagulate and turn into adrenochrome deposits, which then create something called black eye, where they have to go and scrape black pigment off of your cornea because of the adrenochrome that formed in your eyeball.
Why do you need to put that in your eye?
Some people just put adrenaline in their eye for various reasons. But these are the only two main reported uses of adrenochrome now in 2020 is as a blood coagulant, a lot of the time for dental procedures and for surgery and for these adrenaline eye drops. But like you're saying, and even going back to the original researchers, they were very adamant that it was incredibly psychedelically active and that it had way more properties than just as a blood coagulant. But that's been all but wiped from any kind of official research now.
Yeah, it's like plasma physics. Nobody learns about plasma, the fourth state of matter. You should have learned about it, right? With
Let,
gas.
let me tell you on one extra mind-blowing aspect of this. So
Yeah.
Dr. Abramhofer in 1996, and he's credited with being the father of orthomolecular biology, I believe. This is basically when they add supplements to like your cereals, right? Like if you see someone crush up Cheerios and they put a magnet and it pulls all the iron filament out of the Cheerios, you're like, we're eating
Never
metal.
seen that.
That came from Dr. Abramhofer, the adrenochrome guy, because he was investigating children that had schizophrenia, because that's where this research came from. And he found out there was this one kid that whenever he ate an apple, the folic acid caused some irregularities and it made him schizophrenic. And by giving him niacin, which is just vitamin D,
I remember that. Yeah.
B12. By giving him niacin, it counteracted these effects. So he was like, well, hell, we need to put niacin in
It was
all
from eating an
cereal.
apple. Okay, so I've heard this discredited, and they made it like, no, there's no evidence niacin does that. But I never heard the first part you said. It was
Yeah,
caused
it
by a
was a
specific
kid
allergy.
that his parents brought him, and like my kid keeps turning schizophrenic, and he eventually watched and is like, oh well, the kid has an apple every day. As soon as he got the apple, it was a problem with his body not processing the folic acid, which niacin was account. Anyways, he's working on this for 60 years of his life, right? This starts in like the 1950s, and then in the mid late 90s, he puts out a paper called the Adrenochrome Hypothesis Revisited, because the first report in the 50s was called the adrenochrome schizophrenia hypothesis. And in the 90s version of this, he actually states that he thinks adrenochrome represents like an evolutionary step of people that can survive immense amounts of trauma. So for example, if you go through such an amount of trauma that your body is dumping adrenaline in your system constantly, one of two things happen. Either A, you survive it, or B, you basically have a heart attack because all of the adrenaline in your system gets absorbed in the mitochondrial cells, and your heart ceases. So if you can bring someone to that brink to where their system is dumping adrenaline nonstop and then they survive it, that this is almost like if you were to go to the gym and like build your muscles up, you're breaking the muscles and they're getting bigger, so you come back the next time. So in theory, if you have a family line that has a history of schizophrenia, but you yourself are not schizophrenic, then you have all of these natural resistance against traumas that's going to happen to you and your offspring. And that the more trauma you've been through genealogically, the more you can handle coming up. And he even did a direct correlation of cancer rates.
The more you can handle,
The more trauma that you can handle means that really that your body can process adrenaline fast enough to where it won't kill you. And this is exactly why those early schizophrenic patients in the 1930s had these high levels of adrenochrome. It's because their body was dumping adrenaline in their system, and their system was able to keep up with it. It was able to convert the adrenochrome, or sorry, the adrenaline into adrenochrome. So that extra adrenochrome in their blood actually was showing the doctors, hey, this guy knows how to process adrenaline faster than his neighbor who would have had a heart attack.
Oh, that's so interesting, dude. So, whoa. So, okay, wow, that's very interesting.
So his premise is that if genealogically your family is good at processing dumps of adrenaline, then you can handle incredibly like high amounts of tension, either through war. He even makes a statement on bubonic plague. He has a theory that most of the people that survived the bubonic plague had a lineage of either depression, schizophrenia, anxiety, some sort of a neural disorder in their family lines, because that allowed them to have this extra resistance to this like global trauma that was occurring.
Oh, wow, that's interesting,
And
man.
then if you get into like the elites want to, do eugenics and like, well, now they want to breed with people that have this history of schizophrenia in their family line, and that it's a recessive gene, because that means the kid that I have won't have schizophrenia, but he will have this built up resistance to all these other external factors.
Right. And boy, I bet that's some old folk medicine of the elites going back many years to figure it. That's why you would need to do horrible. That's why, like at the top levels, these kids have the same life as Precious from the movie Precious, because you got to make them strong, right?
Well, it also goes into the whole monarch, the monarch theories, where the elites are basically training these traumatized kids and then having those kids reproduce with their kids. It's because they can process adrenaline dumps better than other people can.
Well, also cognitive dissonance. Don't forget the pain of cognitive dissonance, which is, I think, probably broke Jordan Peterson, because first I'm watching his suit split into different colors while he's trying to hold his.
Well, he's molting. That's what lobsters do.
No, he got. Dude, they run this on a bunch of people. I don't know, like at what point. Well, I do know he got hired by Daily Wire, gave him 60 million. So he's getting fired from his job because he was against. No, he wasn't saying I won't use pronouns, which, by the way, what pronoun? But you can't compel someone to use them by law, was his argument. Which, by the way,
that's where he got big. Was that argument?
Now, I don't even think I think it's just a reality, not even a genius. It's a pretty reasonable thing. But in clown world, the idea is you persecute that guy for being clearly right. So now there's a lot of sympathy for him, right? I had a lot of sympathy for that when I watched that dingbat talk to him about lobsters, okay, I was like, this bitch is trying to tear him down. But I didn't understand the full rope-a-dope of how this shit works. So, and he don't have to be in on it. He just has to be traumatized. And he's some hokey fucking Canadian guy, right? And his wife's sick, right? Then Daily Wire gives 60 million. By the way, the Xanax or whatever he was taking, the benzos are prescribed. They're not, and they're terrible. Benzos are the worst. And I came off of Oxycontin. You could die from coming off of fucking Valium and shit. You could die from that. It's not like opiates. And so you almost lost your wife, for whatever. I'll bet you 60 million. I'll do whatever I gotta do. I go have dinner with BB, go say this thing. But because you talk about Jungian psychology and it is a fucking genocide going on, that's got to be creating terrible cognitive dissonance, to somebody who's smart. And I bet it was coming out in his suits. I bet it was coming out in his fucking suit. A bunch of these people that were in Monarch, that black-white duality bullshit, that's a big part of it. So everything's a spectrum except left and right. The only binaries on this earth, apparently, are left-wingers and right-wingers. Not by gender, not alive or dead. Not everything else is fat as a spectrum, but or which side are you on? You're giving your two sides, right? Always. You're never escaping that. And I got to do everything to keep you in that little, that's to me is like, by the way, the Matrix is that bullshit. And now you can watch people trying to herd you back into your pen. Hey, come on, let's drop all these conspiracies and everybody. That's the left used to do that.
I mean, I guess I've been a conspiracy theorist long enough to see it go between those two sides, right? Because in the mid 90s, if you were questioning the government, it was almost seen as like a left-wing thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then after 9/11, it was very left-wing with Occupy Wall Street. Conspiracy theories were like socialist left-wing propaganda. And then once you start getting closer to 2016, then it shifts to now it's extreme right-wing propaganda, right back to like John Birch Society style conspiracy theories, right? So it's always jumping from one side to the other. And I remember looking around, like I don't remember changing left and right sides, but just being
principle can never theorist. All cult of personality principle you got to get rid of. It's always like the problem is if you have a principle, you're the problem, motherfucker, because we need to be trending in a state of flux. I mean, that's that Weishaupt shit too, right? We want everything to be a fucking amorphous blob at all times, and not. We don't want to have rules written down that we have to abide by, like a tech company, right? They like to secretly ban you and not tell you why. We don't want anything written down. We don't want anything hard and firm. It's all got to be.
Well, I mean, we're talking about like the concept of blackballing, right? Which is like how you would vote on someone in a secret society where they don't know what the outcome of the vote was. It's just that someone said no, and that's all you get to know.
Whoa. I don't know the concept. You know what? I've never heard what blackballing actually was.
Okay, so when it's not exclusive to Freemasons, because plenty of other secret societies do this, but when Masons, as an example, are voting on whether or not, like, you wanted to join a Masonic lodge in your area, right? The Masons in that lodge get together and they say, hey, there's this guy, Kurt, he wants to join this lodge. Here's what we know about him. And what they do is that everyone gets to put a little ball inside this little voting receptacle, and you either put a white ball in or you put a black ball in. And after, let's say, like 20 people vote, they don't even care who voted for who. As long as there's a single black ball in the vote, then it means you don't get entry. So to blackball someone means to prevent them from joining a thing or getting involved in a thing. And you don't even have to be accountable. I can just put a black ball in there and be like, oh, wow, who blackballed Kurt? That's crazy. I wouldn't have blackballed him, but it was
right. Boy, that's really a in Hell's Angels, they'll tell you if one guy has a problem, but I don't think they use a black ball, dude. I think you just say, like, if one guy in the meeting doesn't like you, you're not in. But every one of these societies have the same fucking
same rules. Well, because this goes again back to like ancient mystery cults from thousands and thousands of years ago operated this exact same way. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it in kind of a way.
Yeah, and also one thing is these people that do this, they're not that creative. They're literally not creative. They fucking suck, and so you always need a new stream of. You got to be drawing new creatives into their thing. But I feel
if you look into the history of the Bavarian Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, he was just kind of like the paper pusher CEO guy. He wasn't the idea man. He hired his underling, whose guy's name was Adolf Freiger, I believe. but his second-hand man, he's the one that wrote all the rituals. He's the one that got all deep into like the esoteric principles. Weishaupt was just a salesman. He would go out on the road and be like, hey, you got to join this Bavarian Illuminati we got. We're up to level 13 now. How high does your Masonic group go? Oh, you only go to level 3? Well, we go to 13 and we're going from there. So he would sell them, they'd come into the fold, and then they'd show up and they're like, all right, I'm ready for degree number 13. And his homie, Kinnegi, that's his name, Adolf Kinnegi, he would go to Kinnegi and be like, all right, I just sold 13 rituals. And Kinnegi's like, bro, I'm only up to 9. You can't be out there selling 13 and 14 and 15.
He was like L. Ron Hubbard that didn't have enough modules to complete his.
Yeah, 100%. That's the best hit. That's a great analogy.
Wow, that's fucking. I kind of knew it, but I had forgotten that because there's always something. The Roy Kroc and the McDonald's brothers. There's always like the guy that makes it a franchise, and the guy that's like the creative one doing it. It's like in everything. Well, have you ever heard that Illuminati was around in like the 1300s actually? And this was the Bavarian one is just
yeah, the Alumbrados. Yeah, there's versions of it, which was a Jesuit order originally. Like the original Illuminados was from the first Jesuit, and then the 18th century version was apparently like a non-Jesuit version. I find that incredibly interesting that the same group with the same name spans like 7 centuries.
Yeah, well, I think it's up finally, but when I did Rogan's podcast, I was like, and I say this all the time, but I think like Illuminati's like Ciroc now, like it's mostly for black people. Like it used to be like a bigger brand. It's a British brand that was licensed and marketed to black people. I think Illuminati is Jay-Z's Ciroc now.
They workshopped a few things. They had the Perfectibilists was one of their names. They also were going to go with Order of the Bees for a little while, and then
took that one. The Mormons took the bee thing.
Well, the Mormon bee thing comes from Masonry. Like they got theirs from the Masonic concept of the beehive, and they just kind of doubled down on it because all Mormonism is sort of Freemasonry, just add water, plus your wife's allowed to come.
It's like a fucking Andrew Tate University system. There's one like scam. It's the pyramid scheme. There's one. The pyramid is like a symbol of so much. It really is. And they just set up like a pyramid. You want trying to make a structure that lasts for generations. How do you do it? You need a nice pyramid, you know? It's not like, what's a Ponzi scheme's different, right? Because it has to fall out. I guess this one.
Well, the Ponzi scheme just means you always need to have a new sign up to fund the previous wave of signups ad infinitum.
Yeah, that's not a good. It's not a good way to do it, Charles Ponzi. But
if you look into the origin of Freemasonry in the United States, it's the exact same thing. That when it first started, they were going door to door, like vacuum salesmen, and saying like, "Hey, I can get you 3rd degree for $11," and then the guy they'll come knocking after that and be like, "Hey, did that guy just say 11? I can get you in for 9." And it just kind of became this like bidding war of who can sell you the most degrees for the least amount of money.
Yeah, Amway, dude. That sounds like the American way. Amway.
And ironically, Amway and other groups like that, like insurance salesmen, that's what kind of makes Masonry no longer a valid system anymore, because now you got LinkedIn and you've got other ways to provide like background checks on people if they move to different states, and that didn't exist originally. So it's kind of getting replaced.
Who are those guys like the Timberman or some shit? They're in like and the guy that made Mulholland Drive put it in who's the Twin Peaks guy? I'm forgetting Lynch.
David Lynch?
Yeah, there's those woodsman guys in the newer Twin Peaks, but they're based on it was like a fraternal order. Was it the Albacore Club? Is it? I feel like there's something like the Woodsman or some shit they were called.
I mean, there's a lot, because there was the Elks, there was the Moose Lodge, there was a whole
insurance. It was insurance. It started out as, and they're going to a lodge or whatever, but it's all like life insurance. Like if I die, then because we didn't have an insurance industry, I guess, to that degree when they started this thing.
Yeah, there was no insurance. Well, that was one of the original reasons too that a lot of people might join the Masons back in the day. It wasn't as much to get connections and get a job. It was so that when they died, there would be some sort of a support system for their widows and for their kids. And that's the hail of the widow's son, that hailing sign. That was a reference to like, you need to take care of my people after I'm gone because I was part of this group. And there was no other alternative to that. If you died and you left your family with nothing, then they were just going to be broke for the rest of their lives.
I know it's so fascinating how this shit where it grows out of. It's like if you got a need, if you see the need and fill the void with something, you can make a real nice drug smuggling sex cult. Hey, what is your book called, by the way?
Workshopping names, but it's either Adrenochrome Unveiled, which is a reference to the ISIS Unveiled, or it might just be called the Adrenochrome book. I need something that's like very normie friendly.
Yeah, because just saying it, you could be. I mean, I imagine will be suppressed posting this.
Yeah, just the name of it will make it so I can't say the name of the book.
But anyway, Ormus, dude, that's the one to look into. Just drinking the gold, I don't think does shit. But the real one is juiced pineal glands, pituitary glands, and human lung tissue. And they do an alchemical process, which I assume is two guys touch dicks in the moonlight or something over it. And that supposedly enhances your lifespan. And the dude was telling me, he named a family too. They're called Van Duysens, and the guy wrote a book called Astrogenetics in 1977. There's no picture of the guy anywhere. It's very hard to find any info. He wrote one book, and it was all about using astrology and marrying it to genetics of your kids to make plans for. But you know, these assholes make war on each other with this shit. Like that's what the story of Jesus is. The three magi come because Herod, somebody did his star chart, and they're like, "You got to go kill this kid." That rich people have done that for years and years. Use the stars to like pick out an infanticide based on who could harm them later. Okay, like wild. And so the reason a funeral home family would have that goes back to Egypt, dude. All of that pharaonic system is like, you know, funerals are a ripoff. So they were in charge. The priests, they're just like a funerary service that got out of hand. That's how I regard them. And so everything's a big pageant, and every death-based OCD society where you got to memorize stupid shit. The pharaoh. When people talk about it, they'll act like this was like good info they're giving the pharaoh. Like when you meet the ferryman, you must identify the boat oar and say it is a blah blah, and then they're gonna all this bullshit, dude. And it's tying your whole day up with pageantry and nonsense, right? And then when you're dead, I got access to your body parts, and I probably got all kinds of weird skills that you could pass down for quite some time, especially if you discovered monoatomic gold mixed with this shit, which they say the Anunnaki used to drink in, I guess, Sumerian lore. But it's like that movie with what's her name, the one that's married to Ashton Kutcher, and she was actually space royalty, and they used humans to make their lives.
Jupiter Rising.
So I would have been, oh, they're talking about adrenochrome. That's what I thought when I saw Death Becomes Her. Oh, it's probably about no, it's probably about Ormus, dude. It's probably about Ormus.
I mean, it could be a little bit of everything, because again, adrenochrome is just now, in my opinion, it's a placeholder to represent blood libel and blood magic. So if you've got like
will you explain blood libel to me? What do you mean blood libel? The matzo thing?
Blood libel is like the OG anti-Semitic accusations that date back 2 millennia, and basically it was that they were kidnapping young Christian children and torturing them for their blood to use in magic practices. That's essentially. And there was like 4 or 5 specific historical accounts in which this was supposed to be documented, and that those first like 4 or 5 instances were then used as justification for all other anti-Semitism that came after that for like 1,000 years.
When roughly was that? Would you say like the first?
The earliest credible account is somewhere around the 1300s, I believe.
Oh no shit!
There's then there's paintings and there's like songs and stories that have been around forever on these specific blood libel groups. But again, you only cared about blood libel if you cared about religion and the supernatural. So now there's a version of that where you can care about adrenochrome without getting into the weeds in religion.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because isn't that when Kabbalah. I guess I'm saying that. Doesn't Kabbalah come out in about the 1300s, or is that the Zohar I'm thinking of?
I think the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life predates blood libel by a large factor.
Well, probably it goes back a long way, but when historians mainstream consensus that I think it's around 1300, I could be wrong about that, or like 1200 to 1300?
So the very first instance of blood libel recorded, it was by Tacitus in 56, the year 56, by a Roman historian, and he said that it was believed that Christians drank blood and committed infanticide. That's the origins of blood libel.
So the Last Supper is the original blood libel. Is that what that means? Because that's what they're referring to. Drink my blood and this is my body, right?
I mean, I don't know. I've never heard that. I mean, I can see the merit in it. Yeah, I mean, you're drinking.
It's a Jewish cult.
Blood libel historically usually was implying the blood of children, not of Jesus. But I guess yeah, you got to pick between one of the two.
Kid I could think of. Well, but if Tacitus,
well, he was like 30 at that point.
If Tacitus is saying that about Christians, that has to refer to that. The Last Supper ritual, right?
His reference to blood libel was a direct implication to the transubstantiation, because at this point that was definitely seen as crazy cult behavior. That was not mainstream yet. There was no Vatican to like mainstream it for him.
Yeah, right. So, and it's still a Jewish thing then. There's still a faction of Jews at that point, aren't they?
Yeah. And then the most recent one is 1784. It was in Hamburg, and there was people tortured to death that were accused of killing a Jew in order to drink the Jew's blood. So it came full circle in the most recent version.
Oh boy, with a nice pastrami sandwich and
and I mean, you can find alchemical formulas from the Middle Ages too that all reference needing human blood in all their various recipes. So there's an ongoing, and I guess the other part that brings adrenochrome in this and makes it interesting is that there's not just one specific cultural group or time in history when people thought human blood had magic. Like you can go to any continent. There's
that's of course.
Well, and like the Aztec god of tears, where they would rip out children's fingernails and make them cry because they thought that the tears and the blood hitting the soil would act as sympathetic magic. So the gods would be like, oh, you're making it rain on the micro, I'll make it rain on the macro. So like this whole
hermetic fucking Thoth bullshit from Jesus, it's everywhere. Everybody's got a goddamn snake with
Fraser's Golden Bough does the best job of trying to explain how all these different cultures ended up on the exact same rituals on a long enough timeline.
Does it? Oh, it does?
I mean, that's his entire premise of the Golden Bough, is to try and explain why you've got Zulus and Chinese and Germans and Native Americans all doing these same rituals, all having agricultural gods that all need blood sacrifice. Like there's a reason why they all sort of share some of the same symbols.
What does he say in it? Is it?
Well, it's 12 volumes of 700 pages per volume, but ultimately it's this progression of that. Originally, everyone was their own magician. Like if me and you were alive, we'd have to go out hunting for our own food and bring it back to our own families. And so that these superstitions would develop, where if I go out hunting and I come across a gourd that has a weird knot in it, that means my wife's been cheating on me and I need to go back home and kill her. And that just became like a de facto thing. But on a long enough timeline, when 50 people in a tribe are like, look, all 50 of us don't have to go out hunting. How about 40 of you guys go out hunting and 10 of us will hang back and we're going to discover the secrets of nature? And that's essentially how the priest class began. And then it transitioned from, instead of everyone in the village is their own magician, now you're going to have the professional magician that stays back. And now all you got to worry about is hunting and surviving. And when you come back to the village, they'll do all the magic crap for you. So you don't have to worry your pretty little head about that. And then on a long enough timeline, that priest class gets more and more specialized to the point where the hunters don't even need to know there's a god, as long as this other guy's doing that for them.
Oh, that's very interesting. A division of labor, huh?
Yeah. So Golden, I mean, if I've greatly oversimplified it, it's that everyone used to be a magician and now we outsource our magic to some other guys so that we can just make widgets in the factory.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you something. Until you said that, dude, because I saw a gourd just yesterday. That was like, I think my girlfriend's cheating on me. And now I know it's true. No, you're right, dude. If you think of people that, that fish or hunt or whatever, like or just like little superstitious things. Like fishermen have superstitions that are like
Or sports.
on
Like
par
there's
with
people
opiate
that like they
addicts.
won't wash their socks, otherwise their team loses, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's the micro level. That's like each person is a magician. But if they're like, oh well, it's not my socks. I just got to make sure that Bob down the street, he doesn't wash his socks. That's on him now. That's kind
What
of
if
how
I
this.
figured out that I could chain you all together like a big
Right.
system and make you all not wash your socks until it alters reality itself?
Well, and at one point, there's one guy that's like, all I have to do is not wash my socks, and I don't have to go out hunting and put myself in harm's way anymore. Like more of this. How do we keep building on top of this?
Yeah, well, I mean,
And then you get
I get
Bohemian
it.
Grove thousands of years later.
Well, I mean, now it's some things like behind schedule because of how rushed and like weird everything is now. Everything is like, I don't pretend that I know exactly what's coming, but something whoever's on top is constantly, perpetually. Even their adrenaline training, I think, is not working as well because you could just see the panic and the like. We got to do this right now. I know a lot of this shit gets done according to like astrological signs and shit on the calendar because there's certain like dates or whatever. You've heard of this, like Gwyneth Paltrow goop kind of shit where you want to conceive on a certain day, so your kid will be born on a certain day. But at high levels, and I think Joseph Farrell's right about it, is over thousands of years, astrology could become a kind of statistical science.
Well, it's where we get astrology originally was from the astronomy. And the other thing too that I've understood more and more is that astrology is more than just the horoscope crap that you see in like the papers,
I
right?
think that's probably just horseshit.
And
Well,
the
yeah,
well, and the whole like the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. All that is this universal truth that gets ascribed to astrology, but really what they're talking about are cycles in which things die and then they're born again, and then they die and then they get born again.
Mhm.
That's essentially what astrology is describing, and has less to do with like the actual month of March than it really has to do with the month in which you would send your troops to war, which was the original concept of March, because that was the first time of the year that the weather was
Of March,
permitting that you could go back to war.
right? So we have to march. Okay, I get it. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's actually, that's not like some weird Jordan Maxwell etymology. Like that's the actual
yeah.
origin of
It
March.
sounds right. No, yeah, Jordan Maxwell will be a little goofy with his etymology at times. Although that's why. Oh,
He
thought I
gets
saw
into
pterodactyl.
this angle. Speaking of schizophrenia, there's this angle called clanging, and clanging is a medical term for when someone gets into one of these loops where they're like pop, bop, dop, stop, nop, like they just start rhyming random crap. But you can take that concept of clanging and attribute it to like a lot of conspiracy theory where someone's like, alien, well, aliens are green and money is green, and we were taken off the gold standard in 1974 by Nixon, and like just being able to jump from one topic to the other
That's what
is
I
just
do.
a high level form of schizophrenia.
That's literally what I do. But I don't think it's that. I think I got ADHD or whatever they call it, and so all these things are connected 100%. They're not connected, but there's connections that make sense and there's connections that are just gibberish and word association. But the word association thing, that NLP, what do you call it? Shadow, the Twilight language. It almost is like someone talking schizophrenic at you in a way, in little ways that hit your subconscious. And so, like, dude, I had no idea. I'd never considered that thing you said about these people. So they're inbreeding their kids, so they're schizos, and they realize they want that dinosaur like survival ability, but they don't want. And then the kind of experiments you would do to figure out in eugenics, because the Nazis are by no means America was number one.
Yeah, no, we outsourced our eugenics to the Germans, and the Germans were like, "Man, you've really got something good here. We're going to implement it on a state level." The Americans, we kept it in a private level where like you would get financially compensated, or maybe you'd get out of jail early if you did this thing. It was very much like a tit for tat. But once it went to Germany, they were just like, everyone's getting sterilized now. We don't like there's no vouchers, there's nothing. Like you're just gonna do this thing. And that's when it turned upside down. But if it hadn't been Germany doing that, America would have remained like the top eugenicist country in the world, and probably still. And even the groups that that backed away from it were the ones that were funding adrenochrome research. Rockefeller Foundation and the Huxley Foundation. Both of them are still in operation today, and both of them are still actively investigating eugenics. So nothing.
Now we call it
changed on our side.
trans. It's called transgenics now. It's evolved. Did you know that? Martine Rothblatt, the inventor.
Theygenics.
What'd you call it?
Theygenics.
No, it's called transgenics, not as in trans gender, but it's just a redoing the word. But Martine Rothblatt, who is a dude, who is real big in artificial intelligence and all that shit, has a book called Transgenics, or From Something to Transgenics, and it's all about the future of that Peter Thiel, the wonderful future Peter Thiel, has told us about. Where he's like, I don't want to stop at trans. I want you to have a full mechanical spider body.
Honestly, I would say that that's completely compatible with Mormonism too.
Oh yeah,
because the Mormons, they do believe that you can become godlike. You can become a literal god at some point long enough scale.
Yeah, God's a dude, and he has a wife. So they take that divine feminine thing. They do like their own version of Mary. So there's like God's wife. I don't know if they name her or not, but yeah, it's just a fucking coven with a bunch of suckers as a shield. I mean, that's what most of these religions are. The thing that blows my mind the most that I just found out is that Pentecostalism in America, which in the 40s comes back big, especially after the war, I guess.
Yeah, these are the snake wrangler guys, as I know them.
Right, but they kept getting bit, so they started doing different magic tricks because it's like dangerous. So a lot of them moved out of that trick, and they started doing. They had a kid that would levitate on stage like fucking Chris Angel, and they would say, "See the kid," and there's no movies, so everybody would go see a revival thing, So William Branham, those pieces of shit, and by the way, this TPUSA and all this shit. Oh my God, deeply connected with the Branham movement, as was Jim Jones, as was. The process, all these things come out of one goddamn thing. But I thought this is fucking crazy.
Well, there's a connective tissue between all those two because again,
the Kardashians.
There's a book called Folk Magic and Mormonism that describes the origins of Mormonism becoming popular, and it's because they went out into Central America, into the Middle America. And everyone there wasn't really like a Christian. They were kind of like folk magicians that had meanings. And the Mormons were just like, oh yeah, that thing you're doing with like the weird folk magic, that's us. That's Mormonism. Go ahead and jump into the fold. And it's also how like People's Temple, Jim Jones, all these other sort of like tabernacle style churches that would just travel from city to city, they would just swallow up these folk magicians and convince them that their folk magic was compatible with other version of Christianity they were hawking.
I want to show you this. Mark, will you find this put up? This guy's name is Avok, A-V-O-K, Hagobian. It's a guy that looks like Jesus. And so Avok Hagobian comes to America, and Branham meets him and somebody else. So this NAR, TPU, if you ever go to those like Renew America fucking festival, not that you would go to it, but if you ever saw it, yeah, look at him. Look at Avok there. So this Armenian fucking holy man shows up in Palm Springs. That's right. So all these poor people bum rush Palm Springs because they heard there was a faith healer here, and they didn't have enough faith healers for all the poor people. Like the rich people, they were like, we got to get him out of here. See that guy? Anyway, the Kardashian family is who really got Pentecostalism going in America. Did you know that?
I didn't know. I never heard that before.
The fucking I thought they were new money, but I guess not. Because all you think of is Kris Kardashian, but no, Robert Kardashian came from a good family of faith healers. Yeah, Avok the healer, and then they started. All the names end in Union and shit, but they they basically, when these guys were losing money, financed them and kept it going.
That's another interesting dynamic that I haven't seen enough research to peel all this back, but you'll notice that rich people were allowed to get away with having blasphemous books and doing black magic and getting deep into esoteric arts. But as soon as it touched the poor people, that's when they would bring out the witch trials, and that's when they would bring out all of this uproar. But if you had money and you were doing it, it was fine.
That blood libel thing, it's funny because all the examples you gave me were like, it wasn't. I always thought it referred to this one specific slander of they use the children's blood to make their matzos. Okay, I thought it was that specifically. Sounds like it's pretty nebulous, and all the examples you read to me were not what I expected, I have to say. Like, I was like, whoa, that's the blood libel.
The,
Like,
the big one
somebody
that
drank
you'll
Jew?
hear the most is William of Northridge, which was 1144. That's the one where it was the Jews kidnapped a Christian boy and they drank his blood. But there are so many other examples where blood libel is actually being leveraged against Christians doing it because they were in some denominational sect that hadn't gotten popular enough to be like, oh yeah, that's just what we do.
Yeah, well, I realize how ubiquitous blood drinking is throughout the world. When for some reason, whenever I hear the term blood libel, my mind goes to this one Matzo story, and I'm like, what are they even talking about for real? But there's a long history of proud witches framing people that aren't witches and getting them killed. So the American one, the famous ones here, the Salem witch trials. I told Joe this on his show. I showed him those two. You ever see Simone and they got they look like they'd be friends of the mom from Beetlejuice in the 90s, and they're like trad. Like, hello, Simone. They had a viral video with that stupid feminist girl.
Yeah.
Okay. So that whole setup, first of all, you could have cleared the whole video up and go, no, do you understand, honey, what we're saying? You could have like cleared up the misunderstanding, but they didn't want to. They wanted to get this person and who they knew was stupid. So they could, and then the guy that was sending it around to people, his name's like Catholic Z1 or something, who's not a Catholic, by the way. In fact, randomly, my girlfriend's getting messages from people like, there's this fake Catholic guy sending this around. So they set that up. That guy, they're the Collinses. You know which Collins that is? The Barnabas
13
Collins.
bloodlines, yeah. Fritz Springmeier style.
They're techno-Puritans is their religion. The book that they think is divine, the Decisive Bible. It's all in their dumb Wikipedia, but it's one of Cecil Rhodes' favorites. It's a eugenicist book. It's eugenics, just fucking eugenics. Dress it up as like all these tech freaks who don't believe. Oh, and they believe that a God in the future of the timeline from AI. So that's why they believe in a God. It's so fucking retarded, dude. And but it looks like it's some Catholic thing, but it's not. It's real creepy.
A lot of that came from the Macy Foundation meetings that were talking about like cybernetics, and that was supposed to be the next big wave. That's also like 1950s through 70s, I believe.
Yeah, and so that Collins family, by the way, their big claim to fame was being the first fucking witch people here in the New World, or some shit like that. And Barnabas Collins from Dark Shadows, that's based on them. So they didn't get executed for being witches; they were fine. They're proud. Like that's a story about them. Like, yeah, we got away with it.
There's a Mormon angle there too. That Joseph Smith had a relative that was at Salem that was involved in it. And another,
yes, that's right. I forgot you. Yes.
One of the Smith lineage. Here's another crazy one too that I found out recently.
Thought about that. Yes.
Have you ever heard of the Morgan affair, which gave rise to the anti-Masonic party in the U.S.? It was the guy that said he was going to write about the Masons, and then he gets killed.
Oh yeah, right.
According to like Masonic blood oaths, they find him in a certain way. Well, his widow ends up marrying Joseph Smith a few years later. So now you also have a Joseph Smith connection directly to the Morgan affair.
Yeah, well, like all intel work is a coven to me. That's all with that. They call it the dark arts. That's what John D. 007 is, all that bullshit. So he's a cutout. It's like a cut. These organizations have cutouts. I think that's what Scientology is. I found out from Aaron on here that the Nation of Islam uses Scientology with all they license Scientology to do on their followers. You know that?
Have you gone down the 5% angle yet?
What about
within the Nation of Islam, there's an even more niche sect called the 5%ers or the
Nation. Yeah, that's old rapper shit. That's I'm from the tri-state area, so that's
okay. Yeah, so
the God bodies,
the God bodies, yeah, the supreme alphabet and all that.
So that Fard guy, Wallace Fard, the guy who came over and took British Israelism. So originally it was like white people are the real Israelites, but he just flipped it to black people are the real Israelites. And he was white, or he was like Syrian. He's always a white guy, Wallace Fard. And I want to say Elijah Muhammad. Who's the one that learned from Fard? It might have been Elijah Muhammad. The one that
Elijah Muhammad, and then for the 5%, it went to Clarence X.
So Elijah Muhammad's son, I think Elijah Muhammad killed Wallace Fard, and they were like, yeah, no, he was God on earth, and they deified it, like how they do with Charlie. How they always do. They did a king kill on the guy because he was white, and then deifies him in the religion. And they always have a kid who Nibs, L. Ron Hubbard's son, who said L. Ron Hubbard thinks he is Satan. Remember that? And they go, well, you have to understand, Nibs is a liar too. Because, yeah, but I think he's telling the truth. The final initiation in these groups is to create a religion. That's how you get apotheosis. It's like
And tax exemption is the last step in that process too.
what? What is
tax exemption, because the tax exemption is what tells you that you have a real religion.
You got to just not have it degenerate into a sex cult before you get that tax exemption. There'll be plenty of time for sex crimes. Just get the tax exemption. That's how you create a successful religion. Oh, I got to wrap it up, dude. Yo, thanks for coming on, man. That was very interesting. I wish your book was out so I could read it now.
I'll send you an advanced copy. It's a little dark. It gets pretty dark.
Well, that's what I do. Fort Hawk 2. Do you think Candace is lying about Fort Hawk 2? I'm going to be saying that a lot, Ben Eisenberger. Thank you. Let's see. Grundle Sweeper 6069. So the Rogan, you didn't cover the AI Jesus thing too much, but Rogan isn't all in on it. You see, you should contact Flesh Sim. I like Flesh Simulator. I was trying to find out who it was that trashed him, but I couldn't even find the channel of the people trashing him because he did a video. Flesh Simulator is a great Pizzagate video. Okay, what else we got next? Happy New Year and Great Honorable Kapopolis 1. First reminder of the year that BB is getting slimed out in Oman in July. Oh, so I didn't know. I guess getting slimed is I don't know. You get delted, basically. I don't know why.
Is that like a Bohemian Grove thing?
No. I think it means assassinated. I don't know, but let's see. It's a blood gang term. It means to kill. Boy, there's so many esoteric words.
All this Twilight language.
I just got pipe cucked by Paranoid American. So if he has a pipe, I feel like we're going full circle into chicks if I have to look at it that way. You know, like how dare you wear that dress that I was going to wear? Kurp Mebs 2026 predictions. You Kurp predicted Maduro. I didn't derp predict anything. They said they were going to do it. I'm on a news show, and it's so far from being smart or predicting anything. It's literally I just listened to a thing they said, then they indicate, and I just followed it. And here's the predictions now is Iran's next, so they want to deport the surviving Palestinos into Somalia. So it's like that stupid Tim Waltz thing that like, hey, is he going to jail? No, he's not, right? He's just going to not run for office. And that Mormon boy broke the story. That little Mormon boy puppet. He's going to get a job at Daily Wire or some shit like that. Maybe PragerU. And so they're going to dump them there. Fingers crossed. And then they're going to war in Iran. And Iran's going to close the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation. And so then we'll have that oil from Venezuela. I'm pretty sure that vice president sold Maduro out because we all thought what I predicted. I didn't predict it. This is what someone would think I was predicting, but we just reported it. I thought it was going to be this chick that was a Nobel Prize winner that loves Israel so much. But Trump goes, no, she's not very popular. So that was a surprise. I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure she would be the puppet. But no, the vice president cut a fucking private deal. So they're probably also sick of Maduro. They wouldn't be able to pull off a kidnapping of a guy. Have you seen the charges, by the way?
I've just seen all of the bikini pics of Maduro on Twitter now.
Oh, then they throw up the pics of him with the thing, and that's so the kids can make memes of it. They immediately know what they're going for to pull this bullshit off is to fucking because the reason it was going was for fentanyl, then it was for cocaine, then it was for oil that funds cocaine. Then it's like the Don Roe doctrine, which that's not a legal thing, is it? None of this is a legal thing. It's all illegal. What dark things going in Branson? Well, you got to get that Mormon Monarch book that I gave a copy of to Joe by J.R. Sweet. But go on J.R. Sweet's page, mormonmonarch.org. He has it on there. But I would get the book because it's a lot more comprehensive. It's all his memories of the program. And Charlie Pride, this country singer, real fucking gross guy. I'm glad you didn't cave in on Jimmy Dore Show. Greetings from didn't cave in on Jimmy Dore Show. What do you mean? Well, I'm glad I didn't, but I don't know what that means. I'm going to New York. I'm going to be in Saratoga Springs this weekend, guys. Friday, Saturday at Comedy Works. So that's probably where you should go and buy tickets immediately. I almost forgot to say it. All right, what else we got?
Let me throw in one because you mentioned memes too. Just a fun fact that maybe you can slip in somewhere. But the memes came from something called an engram, which was that research and the guy that was feeding the worms to the other worms.
Wait,
But the
what?
actual, yeah, this was an engram. An engram was basically like a memory in
Oh, an
physical
engram.
form.
Yeah,
An
yeah, yeah, yeah,
engram.
yeah.
Well, the guy that actually created the word engram was a guy named Richard Seaman, or his friends called him Dick. So the guy that came up with engrams was Dick Seaman.
Oh, that's cool. I was later very popular in Destiny. Is that what it's called? Destiny, where you get like an engram to make a gun, to make new guns. If you ever played that game, but engrams just sound like body thetans or something, or a Dybbuk. All these things sound like the same fucking thing. The derp is Kurp and get your Nephilim on shirts. Oh yeah, I had my derp. We got chirps coming. Derping my Kurp to the JRRE episode. That's cool. Just went up. I have just one word for that. Rindenschlagen. That is actually John Denver's real last name. Okay. We need a comic from Paranoid American with Kurp. Maybe, but comics are a lot of work. It sounds like he's in the middle of one. Ian McGill Christ's book, The Master and His Emissary, talks about that schizo-autist phenomena. It's people without a working right brain hemisphere. Is that really? What do you mean? I guess I don't know what that means by working. I know they want to keep you unbalanced into one, overly on one or the other. But I don't think your brain even divides that neatly, to you, where it's like you could just say left, right brain. I mean, it's kind of
this is bicameral mind theory, which I think was big in the 70s and 80s, but I don't know if it's been fully proven out. But this concept of the two different hemispheres,
because you could rewire. Well, people get all kinds of brain injuries and their brain rewires, and you'd be surprised what your brain. People used to heal from lobotomies. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
You're talking to one.
What? What? You had a lobotomy and you healed?
It was a self-inflicted lobotomy, but yeah.
Did you try to drill a third eye in your head?
You ever seen the movie Pi? That was based on my life.
What? Are you fucking with me?
A little bit. You never seen the movie Pi, where he has to drill the knowledge out of his head because he learned the sacred name for God?
And in Scanners, did you have to do that? Did the name come out? Any tours in the works? Come to Jersey, please. I'll be there probably pretty soon. I'm with Louis J. Gomez's company, so they're gonna have me out there. All right, what else we got? Anything else? Derp. Oh, derp. Was it derpination? Did you perform a derpination on your skull? Was it trepanning? That's the name of it, when you fucking relieve that pressure of having too much skull so the blood can flow to your third eye. Do you know Rune Soup, Gordon White, David Lynchburg? No, but I'll check it out. Should I?
Yeah, Gordon White's great. We can get him on the show.
Maybe I do know what that is. I got intel that Kurt had a meeting at Fort Cogtua. Who said that? She's a dirty liar. Who's that? Candace Owens. Kurt, you're right about Thompson. I'm from Omaha. He spent time here. Anyone who willingly came here back then was Franklin scandaling. LOL. Boy, that's a fucking. I'll bet you're right.
That's a deep cut reference to Rusty Nelson, right, from the Franklin cover up.
Yeah, well, I was like, well, I don't think Hunter S. Thompson would do that, but now I think he would. Yeah, no.
Before Hunter S. Thompson, William Gibson wrote about adrenochrome fictionally and burning chrome. So there's actually a precedent from before Hunter S. Thompson, and before that, it was Andy Burgess and Clockwork Orange wrote about it.
Did you ever read Anthony Burgess's book about in the future where you pretend you're gay to get ahead? It's something egg, and a guy's brother is fake gay.
Oh, absolutely. No, I read that right after I read Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, that's a strange predictive book. Yeah. So anyway, guy carried a bag of drugs around famously. That's what he's known for, carrying like a goddamn MK Ultra handler, mixing your shit to keep you calm while you do whatever goddamn evil shit.
What was it? The wanting egg or the needing egg or something like that?
I thought it was the wanting egg.
The wanting egg, yeah.
Check out.
I think I read that in like 7th grade or something. I didn't know what I was getting into.
Well, if I read it in the 7th grade, I would have been like, what? No one's ever going to pretend they're gay to get ahead. This is before Pete Buttigieg. Okay. Check out Bishop Larry Gators. Okay. Is he a bishop of what?
Kurt, he's kind of infamous because he was on Tinfoil Hat a couple times and then famously denounced Sam Tripoli and said he'd never be back on the show again. But I don't know. I think Bishop Larry Gators took umbrage with Sam. Maybe thinks Sam is connected to something. Who knows? But he's a bit of a wild card. He talks about the Boule specifically.
Oh, I'd love to get that guy on.
Yeah, he would probably
No,
want to talk to you and promote
I
his
want to know
iHeartRadio show.
Bula.
Yeah, he does an iHeartRadio show. So
All right, we'll try to get him. Mladva online. Mepskirt text like this is sarcasm. I saw, dude. Mark, do you have any? Why do they always do this? On because I was talking about on Jimmy's show yesterday, it made me laugh. Where they capitalize some words but they don't. What is the fucking subliminal shit of that? What like I don't understand.
I have no clue. I see it a lot with music where like songs for no reason are capitalized or artists' names are capitalized or undercase for no reason. So I think
I remember in the late 90s, this meant you were a tough guy on AOL.
Well, okay, back then you could use numbers, letters, and shit to, and it wouldn't be like easily searched. Like there was actually a reason for it when they first started doing it on these. So in that message board that Andy would talk about was Star Child from 2007, where they talked about this is when what's her name? Not Britney Spears, but the other one who was married to Nick Lachey. You know, what was her fucking name? And John Mayer called her sexual napalm.
Nicole Simpson? No.
God damn. I can't believe I'm blanking on her dumb name. I met her at the Comedy Cellar and she had like a aura of, she was like sexual napalm.
Jessica Simpson?
Jessica Simpson, that's right.
All this show on the message boards around Jessica Simpson times. And then some guy who they think is Walter Koenig's son now, but it may or may not be. He's talking about, he called himself Star Trek. That's why they think that. But Boners to Bone. They think it was Boners to Bone from Growing Pains. And Boners to Bone ended up hanging himself in like a national park or something. And the Star Child said he always wanted to be a park ranger. And his dad was like, no son of mine's going to waste his legacy feeding squirrels. And anyway, he said his dad was a huge Satanist and all the weird shit they did. You can't believe. And he kept referring to the San Francisco nest, whatever that means. And it was real creepy. But back then, and it was spelled this certain way where I was like, oh, he spelled like an idiot, but he wasn't. He was spelling it to make it not as searchable, I guess. This is before Reddit was completely, it probably was always a psyop to lure people out and grab them. But anyway, I've heard that before. And I'm just curious if anybody knows what the point of this is. Wait, Rage Machine Against Machine has a track called The Old Religion? Oh, Florence and the Machine. Oh, yeah. She's got some creepy shit too. She's like the daughter of somebody from like something in Britain. Like
she is Siren. She gives Siren vibes, like the siren that Chris Knowles talks about.
When somebody says The Old Religion, that's pretty hardcore, dude. That's like not nobody calls himself a Satanist unless they're a jerk off. Anybody's like, I'm a Satanist. They're the people that are into it are called The Old Religion, just polytheism. This is my second episode petitioning that Kurp streams a run of Dark Souls where he answers super chats. Why? Do you want to see me not enjoy Dark Souls or super chats? Eric Karlstrom, his research is up your Project Clear as Monarch Fiona Barnett. Saw him on William Ramsey 3 years ago. I'll look him up. What else? Excellent presentation. Find my Twitter, uncover additional dots. Keep it grounded. No one found a speculation. Had to write it in weird YouTube. Have you read Barrett Brown's memoir, My Glorious Defeats? Reminds me of John Kiriaku's story, but if he were a heroin addict journalist digging up dirt on Thiel and Palantir. Pretty funny dude. I will look that up. That is interesting. I got somebody just sent me, Rabbi Richard Grove just sent me the Larry Ellison book, The Difference Between God and Larry Ellison. It's pronounced Bondi, not Bondi. Not in America, it ain't. I pronounce it Pam Bondi. I'm here. Okay, wait. Oh yeah, last week my wife commented about you coming up in the world from Sly's Garage. She also said, how did you get Weird Al Yankovic, Mark? Did your wife just walk by lobbing good ones at the chest?
Kitchen out here.
And I think Weird Al Yankovic is 8 feet tall as well. I found out Eric, his uncle, and Pastor Rob McCoy both worked with Mike. Yes, that's right. They wrote, no. Okay, Paul Vallely wrote that paper with him. I don't think Roy McCoy, the guy you're talking about, I don't think he did that, but he was head of PsyOps, yes. And Pastor Rob, again, it's like CIA PsyOp religion, but before there was even a CIA, whatever the rich, I guess oligarchs are like, we need a branch of the government that we own. And
I mean, really, we're talking about Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones was the CIA before there was CIA.
Yeah, it's always everything's like a gross Harry Potter cult with like diddling. That's what Harry Potter Wizard School is missing. All the diddling that goes on.
The obscene right where they get into the coffin.
Oh yeah. It's called grave soaking, and it works. All right. Wait, Tupac was born Lasagne Parish, Crooks. His mother was big in the Panther movement and named it Tupac Amaru Shakur. Well. That's a very interesting detail that I would not have understood how important it was just a couple years ago. Yeah. So, wow. So, because the Black Panthers, as you know, they worked out their ask your guest if he's a Freemason. Are you a Freemason or a pay per Mason?
A little bit of both.
Yeah. Is it? So wait, are you actually in it? Like to a degree? Like,
yeah, I've been 32nd degree for 17 years.
You're not going to move up talking to me.
No.
The 33rd degree. So 33rd degree is Tomorrowland. If you
32nd degree. 33rd degree is an honorary thing that you get when you either donate enough money or you get famous enough. Like, for example, Michael Richards, right? Kramer, he got 33rd degree just because he became Kramer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because that one thing.
Well, that's where you got the 34th degree.
He's a thing. He's now a 34th degree Mason for screaming the N-word. The final initiation. We love you. Happy birthday, Donut. Hey, happy birthday, Donut. Thanks. Is there still more? Hey, ask ChatGPT what is 333 miles. So what is all that 33 shit? Is that Freemason shit? That's the what? Seal a spell?
According to William Cooper, light enters and exits each zodiac at the 33rd degree. That's one of the many explanations that I've heard. It could be a reference to Jesus.
Yeah. Wait, let me read that. I didn't read the rest of that guy's thing. Sorry. 51 correlates Nikola Tesla. Then was 36 miles due. See, this is like I know this is a thing that they're into, but I don't understand it, and I'm not good at math, so I blank right the fuck out as I read these numbers. It does, I don't like. But there's some
Wardenclyffe Tower, maybe is that what we're talking about?
I don't know, but all these things are laid out in these stupid ways, and it being a seal, like Charlie Kirk got, Charlie Kirk, his name means the free man's church, right? So it's a Freemason thing. And so we had a nice symbolic ending of that to move to the techno-Noahide state from with the founding father Freemason shit. That signifies the end of that. The free discussion. So that's why you're seeing these fuckers on CNBC say, we need to limit the First Amendment. Nobody like to hear this from me, Shlomo Kramer. The fucking, I think his company's the one that hid that pedo in Vegas, the Netanyahu pedos that they sent right fucking back in Vegas. So now you're going to hear about how we got to limit your freedom to one, keep up with China. He said this on fucking CNBC where these two yokels sit there. You limit the First Amendment. A guy in a foreign accent saying it. Boy, that's blood boiling. But that's why you do human sacrifice. A nice drama. That's why I had to see Charlie Kirk get shot. I didn't want to see it. Did you see it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried to avoid it, but somehow it still popped up. And I mean, we have to use silly words to describe killing on YouTube to not be suppressed, right? You can't talk about real crimes on YouTube. You have to say grape and shit. But for somehow, that just popped right in my shit, seeing Charlie Kirk die. Why? Because it's required. Because it's required to see it. This bitch hasn't seen it. Erica Kirk's. This one time at Kurp camp. I have never started a Kurp camp. That is a fucking filthy lie. How about metaphysics of banks creating deposits? I don't know the metaphysics of it, but I have to read Money Grows on the Tree of Knowledge still. New podcast, Learning with Kurp. Does thou list if we ever figured out AI, but did figure out time travel with D.E.R.P, Glock, and AI is just time travel to Indian dudes in German call center, Googling and call. I mean, yeah, that's the plot of Matrix 4 that I pitched, and they didn't go with mine. That's the exact thing that I pitched. The Neo he gets to the real AI, and it's a bunch of Indian guys in a bot pretending to be AI. I'm like, please to put me into the Matrix, sir. It is hot. I'm very hot. Have you read Dissipation of Darkness?
No. Who wrote that?
I forget the guy's name, but it came. Supposedly he mysteriously disappeared. Oh yeah, okay.
Dissipation of Darkness.
Yeah. Anyway, it's the origin of Freemasonry from Herod Agrippa in 43 A.D. And he started with Hiram. What was the guy's name? It's not a Biff. It's a different name that sounds like a Biff. And the guy died. I don't know if he got killed by like wild. People get killed by wild dogs sometimes back then. And they made him into Hiram Abiff. And but if you read it, you might go, this might just be some blood libel, right? But even though it's not about blood, it seems like if I had read it a long time ago, I would have taken it as some silly rumor. But the thing that stuck out was the original people that created it. They called themselves the Nine. You ever hear that term?
I've heard of the Order of Nine. Yeah.
I hear that pop up everywhere. There's that stupid psyop Order of 9 Angles, but then there's the Star Trek thing, which Gene Roddenberry had a seance with the Nine.
We're gonna get Peter Levenda on the show to talk about the Nine. He pretty much wrote the book on it.
Yeah, Windows on the World, Mark Windows, great guest. I watch his shit all the time. I don't think he had the right bloodline to move up in the thing, so he did all the hamster wheel shit of ritual and allegory, which if you don't have the right blood, that's what you're going to be doing forever. Once you go, free my homie Mason. All right. Okay, wait. I gotta let you plug your thing, dude. I could talk to you all day. Fucking great guest. I really am glad you came on. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've got plenty of stuff I've been working on. I worked at Disney for 10 years doing animation, so that's what got me into comics. If you want to see the kinds of crazy Disney fueled paranoia comics I make now, you can go to paranoidamerican.com. What's that?
Where you from?
What do you mean where I'm from?
Where are you from?
Upstate New York, but I live in Orlando. I moved here to work at Disney, and I haven't left since. So I've been here for the last.
Buddy Chris Smasco is an animator. Well, he went to Blue Sky.
I worked at the actual back lot until they removed our building and replaced it with like a Star Wars ride. But I was at the Royo Disney production facility for a little over 10 years.
Oh man.
Yeah, you can find more of my stuff, paranoidamerican.com. You can go on YouTube, search for Paranoid American. I've got a podcast series called Occult Disney, where we rewatch all the original Disney animated movies from the 1930s until today. And shout out to the comic I've been working on with Sam Tripoli, Chaos Twins. You can go to chaostwins.com and sign up to be notified when issue 2 drops.
You know, it'd be funny, like to make a new super ski pouring in, but we got to read the. Okay. Hope it's hanging well for Kurp, Mark, your esteemed guest. How you feel about the mud flood theory? First, I had a milkshake yesterday at that fucking P. Terry's, and speaking of, first floors of cities buried, possibly lost technology. The two-headed eagle that's everywhere, but isn't clear what it represents. I thought it's a phoenix. What do you say it is?
The Byzantine eagle. I think that mud flood theories are nothing compared to Bach saga theories.
Which Bach saga?
Bach saga is the real mud flood. I'll say that.
We'll have you back on to talk about Bach saga, Kurt. I think you're gonna love Bach saga.
Go look for the Occult Book Club Bach saga episode. It's about 5.5 hours with me and Juan Ayala.
Yeah, we'll save you the time, Kurt. But yeah, for the audience who wants to get their homework done before Thomas comes back on to talk about that, maybe we can even get Juan, the homunculologist, out of retirement to talk about the Bach saga. He loves the Bach saga. He's
a homunculologist. What is he? Like a Japan?
He's a retired homunculologist. He's one of the only homunculus researchers in the entire world.
Wow, that's fucking weird. Yeah, get him on. Absolutely get him on. That is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard in my fucking life.
Yeah, me too.
Well, when you first told me about homunculus, I thought it was just a guy jizzes in a bottle, but
it's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much like a golem. It's a mind-controlled human. The golem of Prague is a dude. It's some greasy bohunk that they fucking mind-controlled. That's what that means. That's what the golem is. Okay. I can't remember what else I wanted to bring up, but please go to Saratoga Springs at Comedy Works and buy tickets, kurpmaskercomedy.com. Paranoidamerican.com. I guess if we look at that material, and please send me that book, dude. All right, everybody. I don't know what you want. You got